Today we will discuss on the topic of types of research in homeopathy. What are the various types of research? Here we are concentrating on the word types. Okay, types of research in homeopathy. So you know that there are a huge variety of research done on homeopathy, but they fall under two basic categories. Under those two types of research, all the research which is done in homeopathy can be placed. What are those basic types of research? One is basic research and applied research. This is one type. You can categorize all the research in homeopathy. And one is primary research and secondary research. Okay, based on this we will see what are all the various basic research and applied research that are conducted in homeopathy, what are the various primary research and secondary research that are conducted in homeopathy. First topic is basic or fundamental research. Basic research is also known as fundamental research, and the opposite for it, applied research. Coming to basic or fundamental research, what is it? Fundamental research is conducted to increase the knowledge and understanding about the basic principles without immediate practical application. So this is the fundamental research, means to increase the knowledge, to understand basic principles without immediate practical application. It is like building the general knowledge about the particular disease or about homeopathy. This will not have any immediate practical application as of now. What are the examples? You can see here the best examples are characterization of nanoparticles. What is the structure of nanoparticle? What is the size of nanoparticle? What is the concentration of the nanoparticle in a given dilution? And another example would be pharmacokinetics of nanoparticles. As of now we don't have much information. And pharmacodynamics of nanoparticles, maybe how it works on hormesis. And there are some research on liver and bone cancer cells on pharmacodynamics. These are all comes under basic research. What else comes under this? Physiochemical principles of trituration. What happens when the trituration is done? What happens when the succussion is done? What is shear stress, turbulent flow, rotational eddies, energy cascade, cavitation, froth flotation, serial dilution? These all contribute to the general knowledge of homeopathic system of medicine. And what other things? Standardization of trituration and succussion. Now, as of now, each company is doing trituration and succussion on their own terms. That has to be standardized. Machines for trituration and succussion has to be standardized. Trituration and succussion without serial dilution. So one theory proposed is without serial dilution, if you triturate and succussion, that is more effective. So these are all the research that is coming up in homeopathy. And physico-chemical basis for presence of nanoparticles in higher dilutions. So we know that higher dilutions of homeopathic medicines contain nanoparticle. What is the reason behind it? If you consider Avogadro's number, there should not be any nanoparticles or any particle in the higher dilution. But how it is happening? That research is already done. It is because of froth flotation before making the next potency. That is the reason. This is all the research that is conducted in homeopathy. One more interesting thing is there are a lot of unscientific things that are said about homeopathy. Those claims are all rejected, right? Like water memory, epitaxy, and clathrate formation, quantum physical, silica hypothesis, molecular imprinting technology. These are all discarded because now good amount of fundamental research is coming up in homeopathy. Then coming to the applied research, what is the applied research means? Applied research is conducted to solve a specific problem using scientific knowledge. There it is contributing to general knowledge. This is for specific problem and it will have immediate effect. We can use it immediately. What are the best examples in homeopathy? You can see first one is homeopathic pathogenetic trial. It is done on healthy volunteers to evaluate the symptoms of a specific drug. So this is like modernization of drug proving is homeopathic pathogenetic trial. Clinical trials done on specific disease condition of individuals. There are two types of clinical trials generally done on homeopathy. One is RCT, randomized control trial, and observational trials are the most common homeopathy trials conducted by CCRH. And even in PG thesis, most of the PG thesis includes observational trial, not completely observational trial, you can say semi-observational trial. These will have immediate implications or immediate use. This is about applied research in homeopathy. What is the next way of classifying? That is primary research and secondary research. This is also one way to classify homeopathic trials, or this is also a type of homeopathic trials. What is primary research? This is a first conducted research or data generated currently used by the individuals or organization for specific purpose. So all these terms are important. This is the first conducted research. Okay, data generated currently is used by individuals or organizations for the specific purpose. So one organization is doing research, right? They are going to the patient, giving the medicines, and getting the information. So that is the reason they are first conducting the research, and the data generated is used by either individual, if the person is an individual, he will use the data, or organization will use the data for specific purpose. There is one purpose for that clinical trial. Maybe the clinical trial is done on autism, so that research will be used for autism patients. There will be a specific purpose for that research. You can see the primary research is again classified, or there are several types of primary research. First one is observational research. What is observational research? The research in which sample is studied without controlling or modifying the variables. So this is observational research. There is a sample, right? The sample is studied without controlling. You are not having any control on the sample or modifying the variables. You are not modifying any parameters of that particular sample. That is known as observational research. Most of the researches conducted in homeopathy is semi-observational. Normally we say that semi-observational trial, right? But that is not completely observational trial. That is semi-observational trial. What happens normally, even in PG thesis or even the research conducted by CCRH, the doctors give medicines and collect the details from the patient's prognosis. Patient comes to the clinical setup, right? We give the medicine, and patient takes the medicine and he uses it and reports it. This is not completely observational trial. This is semi-observational trial. Example, most of the research done by PG thesis is semi-observational. PGs do in the academic setup. This is semi-observational trial. CCRH also performs semi-observational trials. There are a lot of clinical trials done by CCRH. You can go to website and check. Many of them are observational trials. These are semi-observational trials. Next type of primary research is survey research. Okay, the research in which sample is studied by asking questions. We are getting the survey data by asking the questions. The questions format may be very different. You can ask the questions in an interview, or you can provide a questionnaire, or you can give a rating scale, you can give a checklist, you can have a poll. These are all used for research in survey research. In survey research, you use questions. These questions are in various formats: interview, questionnaire, scale, checklist, poll, used for research. Okay, this is the second type of primary research. And example for this is, see, basically in homeopathic studies we will not do pure surveys, right? These surveys are included with other trials. For example, pure surveys is not common in homeopathy, but it is done along with the observational research or experimental research. So normally when we do the observational research or experimental research, we will check what is experimental next. In observational research or in experimental research, we use this interviews, questionnaire, scale, checklist, poll along with this. Purely doing survey research is not common in homeopathy. The same thing applicable for clinical research as well. So what are the examples? Homeopathic pathogenetic trial, randomized controlled trial, semi-observational trials use lot of interviews, questionnaires, forms and polls and etc. Okay, this is about survey research. Third one is experimental research. This is the final type of primary research. Experimental research in which the sample is studied by controlling and modifying the variables. You have full control on the sample when you do experimental research. That is the importance of experimental research. So what are the various types of experimental research? You can see randomization. Okay, there are mainly two types. One is randomized experimental research, one is quasi experimental research. Both types of research are done in homeopathy. Randomized experimental research, in this the subjects are assigned to treatment group by chance to avoid selection bias. Here two terms are important when you use the word randomization. Randomization, subjects are assigned to treatment group. Either they are assigned to active arm or placebo arm or reference arm, whatever it is, or control arm by chance to avoid selection bias. This is the first type of experimental research. What is the second type of experimental research? This is quasi research. Quasi research is a common research we people do as PGs. The subjects are assigned to the treatment group by choice. Normally, the PGs, what they does is they take the patient and give the medicines. In that, only one treatment arm is there. In that treatment arm, they will directly assign the patient and give the treatment. Almost all the research done by PGs is quasi research with single arm. Single arm quasi research. Normally, it should not be called as observational research, but people call it as observational research. So, better way to use it is semi observational research. You can use that term. Coming to the example, homeopathic pathogenetic trial conducted by CCRH on new drug provings is a randomized trial. When you open the protocol of homeopathic pathogenetic trial, it clearly, the design clearly says it's a randomization trial. And other type of research conducted by CCRH is randomized control trial. This is known as RCT. CCRH performs RCTs on specific disease condition. Here you can see drug. This is on specific drugs. Homeopathic pathogenetic trial is a randomized trial on specific drug. A randomized control trial performed by Central Council of Research in Homeopathy is on a specific disease condition. It is a randomized control trial. RCTs done for PG thesis is rare. Most of the PGs will not do the RCT trial. This is normally done at CCRH level. Next one is, as I said, semi-observational trial. Semi-observational trial, there are a lot of studies where CCRH design is semi-observational trial. This is the most common trial done by PG thesis also. It is just taking the patients and giving the medicines. There is only one arm and you give the medicine and you observe the patients. That is known as semi-observation trial. Okay, these are all the primary research in homeopathy. And what are all the secondary research in homeopathy? What is secondary research? Previously conducted research. This research is already conducted by someone else. The data generator is reused by individual. The research is already done. Okay, the data is already generated by some other individual. That is reused. You can see that is reused by an individual or organization for a different purpose. Okay, so the data is already generated in some other study for a different purpose. We are taking the data, we are reusing the data. That reusing is done by either individual or an organization for a different purpose. For example, that clinical trial is done on autism. You are taking the same clinical trial and using that for ADHD, right? That is for different purpose. This is for different purpose. That is by a different person or organization. This is for different person or organization. Such type of research is known as secondary research. What are the sources of secondary research? You can get those data from books, you can get those data from journal, article. If there is a record, you can use it. Report, you can use it. If the details are mentioned in the website, you can check that website. Okay, these are the secondary research example. Best example, we know that many PG students opt for secondary research. For example, if someone is doing any research on nanoparticle, they cannot go to electron microscope or TEM or SEM. So it is very costly. Instead of, what they do is they do secondary type of research. They gather research or information from the nanoparticles which is already done. They compile it and perform it as a thesis. This is secondary research. So with this we have understood various types of research in homeopathy and what are all the sub varieties in it, what are the different types of research based on the sub varieties. Thank you.